NWSL we are 9 weeks into the season, and to start the NWSL 2024 season, we had teams that were red hot, looked like they were going to be unstoppable, unbreakable, and just ride to the top, that have fallen off a little bit. We also have teams that started really sluggish and slow, and we were shocked at the lack of performances that teams, players, positions were putting out there to start the season. So let's talk about the NWSL pendulum swing. Let's start with teams that started off hot started off cold and are now hot. So this can be anything, players, teams, positions. We kind of left this open for the masses. But Sandra, what is something that started off really cold in the NWSL and is now heating up?
I mean, look, I think let's just touch on the most obvious one to start. It's Portland Thorns for sure. Let's just get that out of the way so that we can maybe get into other things. But that was a very rough opening 4 weeks for a Portland Thorns side that we knew was not that type of team. We were like, surely something will happen here to where they finally kick it into gear. But even that being said, even with a lot of the questions around the coaching for the team to start off the season, the questionable lineups, right? We got introduced to Christine Sinclair, the winger, at one point, and people were like, what is happening? That doesn't make any sense. Hina Sugita was not starting. People were like, that doesn't make any sense. People on people. But I look at this Portland Thorns side even now though, and honestly, in some of those opening 4 weeks, it was still kind of tough to gauge really who they were and where they were at when Sophia Smith has just been in ridiculous form, even during their slump. But now more so, she's like, this is where we're going to fly. So I think that's the obvious one there, I think, for the Thorns, and maybe by extension of that, Soph Smith a little bit.
Yeah, I actually wrote down Sophia Smith, but it's I put an asterisk in my notes next to it because it wasn't because she was necessarily cold. It's that she wasn't put in positions to succeed. And the turnaround for Portland Thorns has to be credited to the interim head coach, Rob Gale, coming in after that 4-game skid to start the season and turn it around to win 5 straight. He's been in charge for 5 matches. That's it. Portland has won 5. It is pretty impressive to see kind of how he's changed things around. He's changed training to make it very game-like. He actually gives the players a number of days off, 3 days off, 2 days off on the weekend, and then trains really hard and really game-like to prepare these players for what they're seeing. And he's also trying players in different positions. No, not Christine Sinclair on the wing, but Olivia Moultrie, who has been a central midfielder. She's been a 10, at times an 8 for Portland over the last couple of years, even for the United States women's national team. And this past weekend, we saw Olivia Moultrie higher up the pitch as a winged player. And although it was Olivia Moultrie on the left, Christine Sinclair in the middle, Sophia Smith on the right, they had freedom and fluidity to move and even rotate amongst Hina Sugita in the midfield as well. And Fleming that's in there, and Sam Coffey, and that rotation of those front 4, 5 attackers for Portland has what's changed their game and made them so good and allowed Sophia Smith to become hotter and score all these goals and lead the Golden Boot race with her assists and her ability to score. So hands down, Portland Thorns, they've gone cold to hot. Let's talk about the other way, hot to cold. A team for me that started out hotter than they are right now is North Carolina Courage. I was really excited to see what they were going to do. They started with 3 wins in their first 4 matches and dominating wins, 5-1 over Houston, 2-0 over Portland Thorns to start this season. And meanwhile, this was at a time when Portland was like, oh, what are we doing, guys? Like, you look a little cold, but North Carolina just looked really solid in what they were going to do. And now they've lost 3 straight, and they have just struggled to pick up points and to score goals, frankly. Their biggest Achilles heel being on the road. North Carolina has not picked up a win on the road. It is hard to travel in this league and pick up wins, but you have to at least try to take points off teams. And that's what North Carolina is failing to do right now. What about you? Who do you think for a hot team that is now cooled off?
I'm in agreement with you on the Courage. They did not have a good road trip by any means. It's a chunk of games that they're going to have circled in terms of areas that they can improve on, because they have not just one, not just two, but 3 games or a handful of games where they could say we didn't do well in these following areas. But as far as hot and cold, I'm also looking at like positions and players as well. Maybe not so much teams. We said we wanted to try to open it up to that a little bit, but this is another year where we had double expansion franchise, right? And we talked a lot in the build up to the regular season about who was better positioned, which franchise took the best, lead, the biggest lead in building their team for success over the course of the season. And I got to say, over our episodes of A3, we maybe leaned towards Bay FC a few times. And I would say that we were correct in that sense. But they have definitely cooled off in terms of what we're seeing from them on the pitch. They were at the end of some pretty wild and free games to start off the season, right? They weren't necessarily getting wins, but they were playing free and they were having fun. And Asia Oshwala was getting goals. Dana Castellanos eventually broke through. Rachel Kundanandi has shown that has been an incredible pickup. She's putting a lot of effort out there. But lately, they have not only been on the losing end of things, but they've stopped getting those exciting goals. They've stopped playing some of that exciting soccer. They look like they're in need of some sort of trust fall exercise. The chemistry is not really there for me anymore. And I don't know if it's coming. I don't know if it's coming along with the fact that they're not getting those wins or they're not getting those results. Maybe those two things are tied together. So for me, they started off a little bit hot. Even if they weren't getting wins, they were, again, fun, exciting, getting goals. Now we're not seeing that anymore from Bay.
I mean, it's just weird how our brains work sometimes. Bay was my second team in this category that started off hot and has cooled off. And it was for precisely those reasons. I mean, Bay had scored in every single match except this past weekend against Orlando, their first time being held shut out. And Orlando stays undefeated, getting the 1-0 win over Bay FC. But yeah, that is a team that they're trying to find their identity. That's why they were my second team in this category, because as an expansion side, I feel like we got to throw them a bone a little bit and say, like, you get the first 4 months of the season to like figure out what you're doing and how you're going to come together. A player you actually mentioned with Bay FC, midfielder Dana Castellanos, she is one that I'm going to categorize her as starting off cold and getting hot, but she hasn't necessarily boiled yet. She's just like lukewarm. But I want her to boil. I want her to be on fire, flaming red, untouchable, unstoppable in the NWSL. But it has taken Castellanos a bit to adjust to the NWSL and a bit to adjust to Bay FC. I think that overall Bay is having a hard time really connecting as a group and a unit. They're almost playing too individualized without structure as to know what they're doing and where they're going. And I don't think that fits to what Dana Castellanos wants to do on the ball. I think she wants a little bit more structure in terms of how to play the passing sequences, what different scenarios look like in game. And once that comes, Bay is going to do better. And then I think Dana Castellanos is going to be red hot. So she's one for me that I was like, okay, she started off cold and she's not hot yet, but she's on her way to getting hot. So that's my like, hey, keep an eye on Dana Castellanos, because once she figures out this league, it's going to be very fun to watch her.
Yeah, watch out.
I like that. I really like that segment. Hot to cold, cold to hot. Let us know
who you should keep those going for sure.
Yeah. Who's hot, who's cold, which way is the pendulum swinging? That was really fun to dive through.